Town of Monroe Zoning Board of Appeals, Tuesday, October 23, 2018. We'll do a roll call.
Abe Euler.
Here.
Jonas Hoffman.
Here.
Joseph Davis.
Here.
Robert O'Neill is absent. Seth Bader is absent. Michael Murphy.
Here.
Peter Lewis.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Okay, meeting October 23, 2018, Town of Monroe Zoning Board of Appeals. We'll do, we have the exit signs. We'll rise for pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 2 is Shara Torah, but they did withdraw their application.
Correct.
Yes. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Is Tower 22 Estates, section block and lot number 1-1-50.
This is on for a public hearing, is that correct?
Yes.
And it's opening tonight,
Yes,
right?
tonight is the opening.
So we should have a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open a public hearing for this case.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did they do the mailing?
Aye.
Yes, they did the mailing, and I have proof of all the mailings, and they received a few green cards back, not as many. Oh, we got more coming in now.
These just came in today.
That's fine. So I do have mailings back, and they did mail everything out. I have the proof in the office.
Okay. Okay, let's hear who's going to speak tonight.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, David Higgins from Lang Tully Engineering and Surveying. With me tonight is John First, attorney for the applicant, and Ruben Rother, who is the owner, project manager, Tower 21 Estates. I was last here a couple months ago. I believe it was the August meeting that I was here for. We presented the plan to the board, and essentially this is, we're seeking a building permit for a new residential structure on the property. The building department had identified a number of variances that were required. The lot is only 0.92 acres, which is under the 1 acre requirement. So the building department had identified a variance needed for that. Lot width requirement's 150 feet. The property as it sits is about 100-foot lot width, so a 50-foot variance was identified by the building department for that. The side yards of the existing structure right now are 14.5 feet on one side and 31.8 feet for the sum total. And we are proposing a new residential structure, obviously not changing the lot area or the lot width. But the side yards of the new structure actually will make the condition less non-conforming. The requirement for the side yard is 30 feet on one side and 65 feet for the total. The proposed structure will be improved from the side yard of the existing 14.5 feet to 17.3 feet. And then the total, again, currently right now is 31.8 feet. That would be increased to 34.8 feet. I believe, even though we're improving the condition, I think the building department had identified a need for the variances because they're still non-conforming. When we were last here, at the last meeting, we had as part of the plan to retain the existing garage and also the driveway leading to the existing garage, which created another variance that we needed, actually two variances. One was related to the development coverage of the property, which we had calculated at the time to be 19.5% for the lot coverage. And also the garage was less than 10 feet from the proposed building, so there would have been a variance needed for that as well. There was a concern that this board had raised at that meeting about the extent of the lot coverage, the maximum allowable coverage being 15%, and we were at the time we were applying for 19.5%. There was some concern given by the board about the extent of the coverage that was being sought. So we have modified the map, which you have, and we have proposed the removal of the existing garage and the portions of the driveway that go to that, as well as a portion of the driveway that's in front of the proposed dwelling or to the side of it that's no longer needed. And we've reduced the lot coverage proposed to 15.5%. So that's still over the 15% requirement. We would still need a variance, but certainly the variance sought is substantially less than previously discussed with this board at the prior meeting. We also did conduct some soils testing. I know there was a comment raised at the last meeting about making sure we had sufficient area for a septic system and meet the separation requirements from the wells. So the plan that you have now shows the existing wells and the results of the soils testing that we obtained. And we provided a design for the septic system. It's understood that if we proceed with this plan through the building department, we would have to finalize the design of the septic system and demonstrate to the building department all the details associated with the septic system. So basically, we are still in need, I guess, the variances for the existing conditions and the side yards and the lot coverage of 15.5%.
You're proposing the driveway, and I'm thinking I'm looking at the same building that I went out and looked at, is in the back. Is it like a green garage, green roof? Okay. And the driveway comes in right off of Seven Springs.
Correct.
So if,
That would stay existing, the driveway would stay as is.
right,
We would just remove the garage in the back
Yep.
and the driveway leading up
to that.
to that, so it would bring us very short to the
Yeah.
15% that we need to
Okay. So then the driveway being removed is the one that goes back to that
do.
garage.
Correct.
Yes. There is on the map, if you look at the map, there's a dashed line around the facilities that are being removed. There's a note there, existing garage and driveway to be removed, and there's a dashed line around the garage and the portions of the driveway.
Right.
I had kind of colored in on the map there, the proposed driveway coming off the building is sort of shown in that shaded gray, I guess, probably.
Yeah, it seems though that the driveway comes in directly, like this is the lot, the solid line around it, correct?
Yes.
So the driveway comes in off of here, not off,
Driveway comes in off the neighbor's property. And that was one of the questions we had the last time, is do you have an easement for that?
We did find,
Yeah, we had, I guess they checked the records, and there was a map that the owner had. I can probably give you a copy of this, I guess. This is a copy
yeah,
to give.
it's fine.
This was a map that appears to have been submitted to the building department. It was approved, stamped approved by the town in 1973. And it shows a 50-foot right-of-way on the property that we identify as now or formerly Hickory Jacobs LLC, which is where the driveway comes through. So it certainly appears that that's a 50-foot wide right-of-way for access to both this property as well as the one that is to the, I guess, to the south of that right-of-way. There's an existing house also there.
so what that allows for the use of
I
that
don't know,
driveway?
I haven't seen the map. I mean, that's the question, because, one of the other things you're here for is excessive lot coverage, and if you don't have a driveway that's on your property and you haven't accounted for a new driveway, then that's gonna drive up your impervious surfaces even
Correct.
higher.
So that would be the joint.
Monroe Building Department, plot plan, map of property, Russell W. Otto.
Was filed 73. This is the right of way.
50-foot right-of-way, no structures. Yeah, it's,
Do you have a deed?
Yeah,
or
there's-
anything in your chain of title that would
No
show an actual
surveyor's
right as
seal on
between
this?
the two property owners?
We didn't have yet a chance of looking, but I will let my attorney speak.
Good evening. My name is John First at Catania Man, Milligram, and Ryder. I was just brought on board, so I'm a little late in the game, but with respect to the driveway, we do have the last deed of record for our subject property as well as a neighboring property. There's nothing in those deeds that specifically reference an easement, but that's not unusual. You know, we haven't had a chance to order a full title report or search yet on the neighboring property, but that's something we can do. But, you know, there is a map that was filed in the building department that clearly shows that there was a right-of-way to that property.
I take exception to the map. There's no signature or seals from any professional surveyors on the map. This 50-foot right-of-way really looks like it's part of a larger parcel to the side. That's the Jacobs Hickory LLC, and that seems to be a large parcel with multiple road frontages, this just being one of them. So, you know, this is not necessarily a right-of-way that was offered to the town for dedication. So this is not, to me, this doesn't prove an easement. I understand that the property has been crossing over that easement, and you know, that we can't approve, you know, because there's no easement here that's being shown in a deed or on a surveyed map. This is not what I would consider a surveyed map. It's stamped by the building department in 1973, but they're not there. This was for building permit purposes. They're not approving your right-of-way configuration with this. This map doesn't even show where the driveway is, so it's really not proving out that there was a driveway crossing over this parcel of land in 1973, which maybe it was, but it's just not drawn out
Right.
here.
I
So
mean,
you can see my issue with that.
There's not all the proofs there, but there's certainly something there. You know, obviously the pre-existing condition and the fact that the driveway's been there. I think we look back to historical aerials till at least 2000. So, I mean, something was there, whether it was recorded or on a filed map. You know, that's something we can, you know, certainly investigate further if the board feels so strongly about that.
Well, that's only one of the three issues. The other issues are the two side yards that still don't comply. I mean, they're less than the previous variance, but I'm guessing that this is a two-story home? Big
No, it's one story.
one-story home?
That's why we had an issue of
Building footprint size here. It's still, I mean, you're not resolving any of the previous nonconformities. And once you knock down that old structure, those nonconforming uses kind of go away. You're still like 45% deficient from what's required by the zoning for side yards in both cases. So that's issue number two. Issue number three is you've got a 50-foot front yard, or 51-foot as you call it in the table, but that's from the property line which runs down the center of the roadway. Typically, the property line is 25 feet off the center of the roadway. So physically, this house is still very close to the roadway in comparison to what is intended in that zoning district. You know, it's a legal debate as to whether or not you can measure it from the center line of the roadway or should be measuring it from an offset that's 25 feet from the center of the roadway. But it doesn't change the physical location of the building. The building is still very close to the edge of the roadway and still essentially in the same place as the previous non-conforming building. So we're tripling the size of the building here and not really reducing any of the non-conforming front yards or the side yards in any meaningful manner. You're getting closer to the lot area coverage, but until you account for the driveway, I don't think that you're quite there yet. And it's not like you don't have room to build. I mean, you've got a strip of land 30 feet wide, 200 feet long to set a house on. And I know it's narrow and it's long, but there's, you know, what, 6,000 square foot of building area.
set this house back further?
It is from 70.
That's what they have to do to the front?
Yeah, I mean, Dave, I don't know, what your feeling is on that front yard setback.
I think
It's unusual that a property line runs to the center line of the road.
Yeah, my own feeling on it is that, yeah, if the deed shows that the property line does go to the center of the roadway, most property lines will go, as you say, to about 10-foot setback from the road surface because there's,
An actual right-of-way.
yeah, yeah. And some deeds will go back and have an ownership that goes to the center of the roadway. If the deed in fact shows that, and this is a survey, so there's no reason to doubt that that's so, then they do show that 51 feet. It's technically in compliance on the front yard,
Okay.
but it's, I think to your point, it's a factor to consider when you're also considering the fact that you have the side yards that are, significantly deficient pursuant to the code, and the lot area, and the lot coverage that still is a little bit over. So I think what you're saying, if I'm hearing you right, is that even though it may technically comply, it's a factor because it is close to the road surface.
Right.
It's closer to the road surface than it would otherwise be, even though it may be in technical compliance.
But regardless, I think it's not as close as the existing structure, right?
Which,
The front yard.
yeah, it's further back off the front property line
Right, so
than the
the
existing.
conformity is actually decreasing. And the same with the side yards. I mean, you have nonconformities, we're making things less nonconforming.
And
By a
the
hair.
width is non-conforming too, so we have,
Yes.
basically, the side yards that are shown on the zoning code are associated generally with 150-foot wide lot width, and we only have 100 feet, so, there's 50 less feet to
What
play
was,
with in terms of
was
the
that
side yards.
the condition of the lot when you bought it?
Did it the same way.
Okay, well, then that's the condition you bought it in. Now you're looking to do something different with it, and you should be
Well, isn't
complying
there a
with.
section in the town's code regarding substandard lots and how pre-existing substandard lots are basically exempt from lot area, lot width, and lot coverage requirements?
I would
I'm
have
looking
to,
at section 57-39, and it basically says that there's a possible exemption. The first thing I question is why we're even here. A lot of towns have these.
5739, if I recall just from memory, I think that only applies to a small portion of the town, a specific area, like out in the Walton Lake area.
I don't see that, but I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm coming in late in the game, but a lot of towns do have provisions for pre-existing substandard lots, where as long as you're not increasing any nonconformities, they're exempt from a lot of the lot width, lot area requirements, as long as you meet certain things. And one of these things is the side yards can't be less than 25% of the lot width, which my quick calculations show that we're compliant with. So, I'm wondering if we even really need to be here, but, I didn't really want to make a big deal about it because I think the variance requests are so minimal and de minimis. And again, we're decreasing many of the nonconformities, so, to me, as far as the balancing test, I think it clearly falls in favor of the applicant. Any increase is slight, it's only 0.5%. If there's an issue with the driveway, the driveway's obviously been there for at least 15, 20 years based upon the aerial photographs. There's a vague reference on a survey. Maybe there's nothing filed, maybe there's nothing referenced in the deeds, but we can certainly look into that. But at the very least, they must have some type of easement by prescription, given the fact that it's been well over 10 years that they've been using it to access this parcel.
I'm still confused about the driveway, because there's a driveway off the road that goes to this house.
it's probably. what
No,
you're
it's
looking
not,
at.
it's not over
It's not
here.
that?
It's
You're saying it-
directly off
really?
the road. There's a driveway there.
Off the road, but technically the lot, this lot over here.
No, I've seen this. This driveway comes in and goes over, and there's some sort of a structure here. There's a driveway here.
Here's an aerial from Google Earth. And the shaded area there that shows, it looks like it's a road
Right.
that goes through that, what we're calling the right-of-way on the map that you have. I think that's a Google shading. There's not really a road that loops around the back as shown on it. That's just a shading. But you can see the adjacent house, the next lot over, past the 50-foot right-of-way.
Right.
That shares the driveway with the same entrance off of Seven Springs Road.
Okay, so that driveway I'm talking about is this, this right away.
I think if,
Okay.
it goes off to the left.
Got it.
If you came off of Seven Springs Road
Yep.
and started to go up the driveway, kind of goes off to the left, that's to the other house.
Got it, okay.
Yes.
All right, then that's clear then.
There's multiple copies of
Yeah.
that map if you guys want it. Yeah.
Have you approached the neighboring property owner to see about obtaining any formal rights and/or determining the rights that you may have to cross over their property by way of right-of-way or easement?
Right. I guess the answer is not yet. You know, they feel like they've been using it for over 10 years. They feel like they have an easement by prescription, so why should they go seeking permission and start kind of poking the bear, so to speak?
Because there's no legal document granting them access. I mean, it's just, by way of use, and I don't know what the legal ramifications of that are. But, I mean, I look closer at this map. This map that you were referred to us is prepared by the previous owner of the property. Says right here, drawn by R.W. Otto. And the name of the map is Plot Plan Property of Russell W. Otto. So he prepared his own map that was part of a building permit for an extension.
I'm not saying that's the end-all to end-all,
Yeah.
but it certainly helps. But I know you realize you'd rather have a filed map or a deed, and, we could certainly search for those records if you feel it's necessary. But again, they've been using it for 10 years, and it hasn't been an issue for the last 10 years. It hasn't been an issue
Right.
that we're aware of, so I guess why start now?
I think the board's concern is that if they were to consider granting you the relief, with on reliance on the representation that there's a right of access there, and it turns out there's not a right of access. The day after they grant the variance, suddenly there's a quiet title action filed by the neighbor, and he says, you can't use my property to gain access to your property, and therefore, and let's say you lose that, and now you don't have that right of access. Now what? Now the board has given you the right to build here with certain representations on lot coverage, and now your only access is going to be to come in and ask for more relief and ask for more access to add more lot coverage, and to change your entire plan around. And it just, it's a mess from a zoning board standpoint to think about giving relief under those circumstances,
If I may ask if it's possible to do condition 2, subject to get approval, subject to that easement, because we really feel that we are entitled of that right away. It's by automatic. I think after 10 years, if it's existing, there is nobody came forward.
You may well have a right as between you, but we don't know what the position is of the property owner. The property owner may come out of the woodwork and say, no, you don't satisfy the requirements for the following reasons. I put up signs, or whatever the defense that they may have to that claim, they may raise that claim. They may say, no, you're 100% right. It's no problem. Here's an easement.
Right.
So
There could be something filed, or there could be something recorded. That would be obviously the best case scenario. So I think the idea would be to, if you want to approve it, subject to us providing either a filed map or a recorded document showing access, or in the alternative, I guess the worst case scenario would be to actually, getting the owner to sign a new document.
I don't think, if I may just add, I don't think it's an issue, because if you take a look at the map, at the site plan, you can see the entire property is only in the back. They have only in the front. Where we have the driveway, it's a small piece of, it's a parcel 50 feet wide, and it's like a strip going to the back. So it's not buildable, there's nothing there that the owner can do there. So I don't think I would have an issue getting an easement through there.
You see, if this board grants an approval for a variance on this, and it's like we're saying, okay, we're also granting you the right to cross your neighbor's property without an easement. So until that's proven, I don't think we have the right to do that.
I guess I think the question is, would the board be in a position where, if they were inclined to grant the variance, if they could grant a variance, close the hearing, grant the variance, subject to the applicant providing either, as John mentioned, some clear indication, a paper record, satisfactory to the board and their counsel, that that legal access has been demonstrated. Otherwise, we have to come back for more meetings after, we obtain those records. The
Right.
question is, can the board act contingent upon us providing that information?
Right, to your attorney, subject to his review.
That only solves one of your problems. You still have side yard variances that you're 45% deficient from what's required by zoning. There's this issue about whether it was a pre-existing non-conforming condition previously, and you may be right that was the condition, but you're knocking down that old structure and building a new. And, here today in 2018, I'm saying build within the boundaries of your allowable building envelope. There's 6,000 square feet on the site where you can build a house. And I know you have a very specific layout for a house, so you must have set architectural plans already. This has all been, thought through pretty far, with the exception of recognizing that you have variances here that you have to deal with.
We did show it last time we were here by the board. We recommended to do a narrow.
I know
There's no
you.
way of doing that. There was no option really of doing a entire home, just doing a 30-foot long. There was no, the rooms was not a way of doing the plan. We weren't able to do a normal, decent plan that,
Going back to what you were saying, you were saying you don't know why you're even here.
Yeah,
But you're here because you were referred to the board
Correct.
because you need to get variances for,
Well, I'm not necessarily sure we need variances. Like I said, I
Okay.
came in late in the game.
Right.
I'm looking at section 57-39, supplemental bulk requirements. It talks about undersized lots.
Right.
And you can actually be exempt from the lot area, lot width, and lot coverage, as long as you have enough for the sides.
okay, but would that come to us?
If you had enough for the sides.
Well, we do. It says, I can read the section. It says, notwithstanding the lot area, lot width, and lot coverage requirements of the scheduled district regulations, a single-family dwelling may be erected on any lot separately owned and not adjacent to any lot in the same ownership in the effect of the date of this chapter, provided that the aggregate width of the side yard shall not be less than 25% of the lot width, and that the narrower side yard shall not be less than 6 feet. So they're letting you go at least 6 feet to the side yard. And 25% of the 125, I think, is about 31.
Yeah.
So
We have one side yard 17 feet,
right, but what's our total is 34.
34.8.
So we're greater than 25%. So I'm reading that saying, why do we need a lot area, lot width, lot coverage?
And as I recall, I think that code only applies to a certain portion of the town.
Well, this is in Article 11, supplemental use and bulk requirements.
I don't have the code in front of me,
Those
so
requirements apply to all chapters usually.
usually.
Unless
But I think that was
otherwise
written for like the Walton Lake region, where there were all these lots that were cut up as 25-foot wide lots on these maps dating back to the early 1900s. And that's where I'm familiar with that exception being applied to it. I'm not sure that it applies in this section of town, but, I'd be willing to read it up on it and see what that says. Maybe I'm misinterpreting
In my
it.
view, it's applied to any undersized lot. And like I said, it's not unusual for towns to have these substandard lot provisions where they provide some relief on these pre-existing substandard lots. The idea is not just to let the lot sit there.
Mhm.
The idea is to let it be developed since it's been paying taxes for a while.
Sure. Is that Dave, are we to know that exception?
I'm looking at it right now, I just called it up. Trying to look at it on your phone and try to think
Yeah,
about it in
I apologize.
context
I
is...
just came across this today. Like I said,
Yeah.
it was just brought on board yesterday.
Yeah,
I actually, I reached out to Mike Donnelly's office and not realizing that I should have reached out to your office, David, so I
Right.
apologize.
that's okay.
So he never called me back for the obvious reason.
Dave? I have it up on the computer if you want to look at it.
Yeah, no, I have it up here.
Okay.
Just interpreting it and giving you a legal opinion as to whether it applies and in what way, sort of on the fly here. I'd really rather
Yeah,
not
I
do
mean, quite
that.
honestly, I didn't
Yeah.
think the variance request as far as going through the 5 factors was going to be a big issue, so I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if I wasn't even planning on bringing it up. But, given the discussions tonight, I thought it was at least worth mentioning, But, you know, if the board's inclined to grant the variance, then it's a moot issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's a section that on its face looks like it permits a complete end run around the entire zoning code. So I have a hard time getting my head around the fact that this would allow you just to build, not, you know, notwithstanding what anything, what the bulk requirements actually are in regard to the side yards and the width. And I get it in regard to width and area because that's something that you can't change. But I'm not so sure that this section means what you're advocating that it means, which is if you have a lot that happens to be under the required lot area or lot width, you can build regardless of the side yard requirements, so long as you have 25% or at least 6 feet on one side, 25% in regard to the entire lot, the entire aggregate. Let me back up. I think what it's saying is that you need 25%, the aggregate of the 2 side yards has to be at least 25% of the lot width, meaning on a lot like this, it would be, where the lot width is what, 100 feet?
It's 100 feet. The existing lot width is 100.
You need 25 feet aggregate, and you're saying you have 34.8, so you would comply, and allows you without, you're saying without having to get a variance, it doesn't matter what the side yard requirements are, so long as they aggregate to 25 feet or at least 6 feet.
Right.
So it's basically saying, you're advocating that section allows you to build to within 6 feet. If you wanted to move this property to within 6 feet of one of the property lines and move it over there and stick it 6 feet, so long as you have at least 25 feet total, you could do that as of right. I'm not so sure that section is intended to permit that result,
That's
but,
how it reads, and like I said, I've run across these type of provisions in
Yeah.
other codes.
yeah.
But again, I mean, if the board's inclined to grant the variances, then it's a moot issue.
That's true. And going back to the prior point, you would be able to, you know, if you were so inclined to granting it subject to and conditioned upon provision, you know, in form acceptable to the board and legal counsel, that they have the right of access that they're showing that they have. That's something that can be done if you're so inclined. You don't have to do it, but it's legally permitted to do that.
Okay, so let's summarize what we have here in front of us. We have 3 variances, right? One is 15%, and they're proposing 15.5 coverage, right? Correct me if
Yes, that's one.
The second is the side yard setback, which they are saying that because it's a narrow size lot, they should be able to get a variance on that.
Right, in the side yard, there's 2 that they're asking for. One is the side yard and one is the total side yard. 17.3 on the side yard, 30 is required, and then the total 34.8 is provided, but 65 is required. And then you have lot width and lot area.
My question, on a lot that's wide, it's only wide 100 feet, how can they provide you 60 feet side yard? What are they staying with 40 feet?
The total is,
Total.
Yeah.
30 and 60,
right,
So they're staying with 40 feet?
not even 30,
35 feet.
35 feet.
Right, your point, Mr. Chairman, is that the code requires 65 feet aggregate side yard, and if you only have 100, if you only
Yeah,
have
you
100
can't.
feet, it doesn't leave you but
Right.
35 feet for the
the
total
actual
width of your home if you're going to build in
Yeah.
strict compliance with the code. That's what your point is, right?
Yes.
What is the existing house? Is this inside of where the existing house is? So,
excuse me. The existing house is shown on the map, and I know Ruben has mentioned to me that, I have not been in the house, but he's saying it's in pretty dilapidated shape, it's in need
Yeah,
of
it's-
replacement.
right.
And obviously, he's looking to put a house, for the family to, something,
Yep.
Accommodate the needs.
So the existing, so,
Actually, the board should be happy that we want to bring it up to date.
no, absolutely, I mean,
Otherwise, especially we're not putting up a two-story, just keeping it should blend into the area. I mean, that was the best that we were able to come up with the side.
Right.
Yeah, the existing house is showing up on Google Maps as a kind of a bed and breakfast, vacation home rental agency. Reserve kosher,
right.
so.
And it appeared to me, I think it might be worth mentioning, it appeared to me that the house was constructed in, if not exact, in general conformance with the map that was submitted earlier, the one from the 1972 building permit. It appeared to me, at least, that the overall shape and dimensions and the side yard that's shown on that seemed to be pretty much matching what we have on our
consistent,
survey.
yeah.
I don't think the town would grant them a permit, an approval, if they wouldn't have the right-of-way of a driveway. Because
You're talking 1973. The set of plans the town had for my house in 1965 were drawn on loose leaf paper. All right, and it was one sheet. He couldn't give me a copy. We just made a copy of it. He couldn't give, because it was just one sheet of loose leaf paper and said, here's the house 50 by 30, and,
We go back to that time.
Yeah, you go back then, and things were much looser.
Right.
And like I said, this is a map prepared by Mr. Otto for Mr. Otto, and, everything's approximate, there's no signatures or seals on it, and that's kind of besides the point here, but the point being is that, if you are gonna be using this right-of-way or easement, if for this board to approve it under such conditions, that really has to be proved out. Or alternatively, you show that you have a driveway coming into the house, a new driveway.
I think we resolved to do that. I think to provide that to this board.
Right.
Some, demonstrable evidence that, a right-of-way is, either does exist or we will provide one.
Right, as
Driveway.
conditioned, right, the variance could be conditioned upon that, and no building permit could be issued until that proof is submitted and filed in form acceptable to the board and council. That's something that could be done. And that way, the applicant could not build in the absence of establishing a legal
Sure.
right.
I mean, from looking at it, obviously the house, as you mentioned, is in disrepair and it's going to be demolished. So there's going to be a new house there. The new house is going to be within the lines of where the existing house are. So that makes a lot of sense.
Wherever we were able to comply
Right.
with the new code, we did it.
Mhm.
We did move it into the back. We did,
Yep. I guess the one issue, or the other issue, is the driveway, if there is a condition that was the case. I mean, it obviously would improve the neighborhood.
Also, another thing that I want to mention, that we did remove the garage. It was another 1,200 square feet in order to be able to accommodate the board.
Mhm.
We did came with, we want to back, we would like to have the garage, but I guess we made it easier.
Sure.
We did remove.
Okay. Any more questions about this issue? Any questions?
No.
Can we go on? Are we ready to go on?
Sure.
Okay. Make any issue, anybody in the public that would like to comment on this? Once, twice? Nobody. Okay, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Hey, was that you seconding?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, now we need a secret.
No, you don't, no, it's a type 2 action.
Type 2 action.
Yeah.
Okay, type 2 action won't need the secret. So move on to the.
Yeah, you can discuss the application and discuss the factors, and either make a decision tonight or hold off on making a decision to your next meeting, or until 62 days from today.
Okay, we'll go with whatever that's written there, right?
Maybe go through the variances that are sought, or
Yes,
what are you looking to do?
One variance at a time.
You don't necessarily have to go one variance at a time and address all 5 factors in regard to each one. You could address the 5 factors in regard to all of them,
Okay.
would be a more traditional way to do it. But, you know, it's your pleasure to engage the board or any board member to start a discussion on any of the points.
Okay, we'll do the 5 factors on all 3 issues. Number 1, whether undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or determined to nearby properties will be created by granting the area variance. Any discussion on that?
No.
No. Number 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. The applicant had explained his hardships. That
And I still stand by my position where there's over 6,000 square feet of space where you can build a new house and not be in violation of the zoning code. So on that, that's my position.
Okay, what's your position on that?
I'm in agreement with Mike that I think there's more than enough room on this property to do something else proposed.
Okay, Mr. Davis, what's your position on number 2?
Based upon getting the, I guess, the map that was submitted in 1970,
79.
if we get that legitimately, I guess, taken care as far as getting the stamp, I don't have a problem with, based upon that, granting the variance.
Mr.
Again, I'm sure the map that they do on the property is the best way you can put a building on. The other way, like the box where Mike's referring, that could be room to build. I don't think anybody will build a house that would look like a trailer home.
Yeah.
It's going to be very unproportionate. So the way they set the building, comparing to the last time and comparing to other lots all over, it's actually going to bring this area in a very nice position, and it's going to improve the whole area better than if you go across the street or down the road, up the road. This is probably going to be the nicest and the most to the town's requirements, even though it bumps out of the others a lot.
Hey, Jonas, I'd like to, I mean, I agree with what Mike is saying, but I agree with Abe and as well, that even though there is probably something else that could be done, I think what they're proposing, does make sense as well.
Okay.
Especially the building is proposed to be a very small house. It's not like a huge structure. It's where family can live. I don't see no problem with granting.
Okay, and I agree with that also. They're trying to accommodate as much as possible, and they're trying to bring it, it should look like something, look like a house, and similar to all the houses in the area. And if they would build a different way, it would not look as nice as all the houses in their area. So I agree with that, because they're trying to make as small as possible their variance. So we could grant them the variance for that. Number 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. We spoke about that already.
Yes, it is substantial. They are 45% below the required minimums.
Mr. Chairman, am I allowed to
Yes.
chime in?
Yes?
I think if you look at whether it's substantial, I think you have to look at the fact that there are pre-existing nonconformities that are actually being reduced. So maybe it may be 45% with respect to the current code. I think you should note that it's either the same or going to be less than what currently exists. So that should definitely be a factor in your consideration as whether it's substantial.
I agree with that.
Okay. Okay. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact the physical and environmental condition in the neighborhood or the district. No.
No.
Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Now, it's definitely self-created because, but on the other hand, it's the existing dwelling is non-conforming, and they can make it a little bit more conforming. So that helps it a little bit to give them the variance. Okay, so we did the 5 factors.
Now, if you want, you could entertain a motion to deny it, you can entertain a motion to grant it, entertain a motion to grant it with condition. If there is a motion to grant it, it should be with the condition and subject to the provision of,
Okay.
proof of the right of access. It's up to any member to offer a motion.
I'll make a motion to grant it on the condition of bringing proof of that access to this, as we discussed before.
I'll second that motion.
What exactly are we asking them for? For proof that they have a right to an easement for that?
Right away on that driveway to access the property.
Right.
Or alternatively, to build their own driveway on their own property.
If they don't have,
If they don't have it, that's
Well, then they would have to
my
come back for
Yeah.
further relief in that regard because they will have increased their lot
Impervious
coverage.
area.
Correct.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't be able to get a building permit. So the condition should be very explicit that it's, and you can adopt what I'm about to say as part of the motion if you'd like, or if you don't like it, you can change it any way you'd like. But the motion should be subject to and conditioned upon the applicant providing to the board and to counsel for the board, subject to their approval, sufficient proof that they have the right of access over the adjoining parcel that they've represented they have in the hearings today, and that no building permit shall issue until such proof is provided.
Right.
okay. We'll do that condition as the,
I'm just also a little confused about the proposed driveway that's shown on this lot. If you do have access over your neighbor's property, then you're proposing just a single width driveway right to the side of the house? Am I reading this correctly? Because there's so many dashed lines, it's hard to tell what's being proposed as the driveway. Most of what's out there is being called out as being removed.
It's a 14-foot wide driveway leading up to the garage.
So it's 17 feet long, 14 feet wide.
I didn't measure the, oh yeah, I guess it's off the
Yeah, 'cause
side
it's-
yard, 17 feet long.
Yeah.
14
So I mean,
feet
it's not even enough to park a car.
long. We certainly wouldn't mind making it wider, but then that changes the lot coverage calculation.
Yeah, but I mean, what's the reality of it is the question. Are you going to be parking one car there, or are you going to have 3 cars? There's not even a way to turn around the car on your own property. I'm just looking for a clarification on that. Because, maybe the driveway that's being proposed here is, insufficient for the needs.
Well, I think the way the existing driveway is, I'm presuming that they have legal access, which obviously we have to demonstrate to this board. But under the current circumstances, they would have to back into the same, across the property line in much the same way. Although it's wider, given the location of the house, they still have to back out across the property line.
Okay.
What's being removed is the driveway that goes back to that garage.
No, all of it. What they're saying is, this is what their proposed driveway is, just this little square. That's gonna be the new driveway.
It's a part of the driveway that they're gonna use from the next property after they provide.
That's it. So it's 14 feet wide, 17 feet long. It's a car and a half wide and just short of a car long.
14 feet
14 feet wide.
wide. Normally, you'd have 18 feet for 2 vehicles. Room for doors opening.
Right, that's, a small car, 18 feet long, 9 feet wide, so 2 of them would be an 18 by 18.
Right.
All right, just want to be clear on what's being proposed here.
Okay, we have a motion. Now we'll take a vote.
Second.
It was seconded by Jonas.
No,
I seconded it. Take a vote. What's your vote? You grant the variance with the condition, right?
yes.
Mike?
No.
No. I say yes.
Yes.
Abe?
Yes.
Okay, it's 4-1. Okay.
Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Dave, you want to keep this and scan this into me?
Oh, sure.
And then I'll send it to all the board members. Thank you.
Yep.
Keep it so we have it finished.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Next subject tonight is Vansislav
Calls him Vinny.
Stvarev. Section Bracken lot number 34-4-11. Who's here tonight for this matter?
Hello, everyone. My name is David Nimato. I'm the architect for the project.
Okay, could you explain to us why we're here tonight?
Yes, we are here first to entertain a public hearing for this project. We presented to you,
Can I interrupt for 1 second? I apologize. Did we open the public hearing on this last time, or no?
Nope, tonight is the public hearing, so we have to open,
Okay,
do a
so there
motion
should be,
to open the
there should
public
be a
hearing.
motion to open the public
I'll make a
hearing.
motion to open the public hearing.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You have the green cards returned.
yes, yes, I do.
Excuse me, David, I was just wondering, last time that we had discussed, did you find out if it was acceptable, or did we find out if it was acceptable for the mailing order?
The certificates of mailing were not,
Okay.
were not approved for this project. So I don't know if it's a pending process.
It's a pending process right now.
All right.
I need approval from the town board. They need to make sure, see if they can or cannot
I
change
appreciate
the...
you. No, we had to do return receipt.
So you're gonna provide those cards.
Thank you.
Okay, can you explain what you hear?
Yes, our project is very minor in nature. So this was a structure that was built in the 1940s, 1950s. There is an existing raised concrete patio that we had talked about at the last meeting that's been in existence for plus 50 years. The owner purchased the property. There's 3 lots consecutive. He put a roof over that raised concrete patio. He did not enclose it. He did not create habitable space. He improved it with railings around that concrete patio. The building inspector felt that that required a variance because it encroached, that existing raised patio that was built in the 1940s or 50s encroached upon the side yard requirements of the current zoning code. So as was put out in the public notice, we're asking for a minimum side yard requirement. The current zoning code requires a 30/60. We're proposing a 26.5 and a 34.5. So that creates a difference of 3.5 feet and 4 feet. That's the one relief that we're asking for. The second is the minimum rear yard. Right now, the zoning code requires 60 feet. That existing concrete raised patio is 43.9 feet from the rear yard. That creates a difference of 16.1 feet. We're asking that the board consider this. It's minor in nature. It has no impact at all on the neighborhood. It's in the backyard. It's contextual to the house, as can be seen by the pictures. Again, it's very minor in nature. It satisfies all the 5 requirements of the zoning, the requirements of a variance that's needed. So we would like to, if the board has any other questions, we'd like to entertain that and hope to seek approval for those variances.
Noreen, we got any paperwork on that? I don't see any maps or...
This was all given, nothing new came in this month, so it's all what was in the original packets.
Oh.
I will note that at the last meeting, Mike asked for the plans to be signed and sealed. I did do that. I have 3 copies.
Can you at least give one to the chairman and...
Sure, and I just want to make one other note. He asked for the vicinity map to be revised to show it off the corner lot, to show the 3 lots correctly, which we have done.
Thank you.
If you want to bring them up, they can share them. Thank you.
This was existing. He put the railing up on the roof. So for clarity for the board, I think one or more of the board members might not have been here when you presented last time, and for the sake of the record, for the public hearing. Is the situation that the existing patio, because it did not have a roof over it, did not count towards the side yard and rear yard setbacks, and then once it was roofed, the building inspector believed that now under the zoning code it counts, so therefore needs a variance?
It initiated a variance requirement, yes.
Just for curiosity, how did we talked about this before, the roof was built, but then how did the building permit process get?
The owner didn't realize that a permit would be needed. It was done in naivety.
Mhm.
And so the roof was constructed. I guess the building department, either the owner finally realized that he needed one and went to the building department. He did fill out a building permit application after the fact. The building inspector reviewed it and said, that a variance would be needed.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of times that after the fact, when something is built, and then they either want to sell the house or refinance or whatever, and the building department finds out, and the only way they can put it on the plan and legalize it is with the ZBA. That's
Absolutely.
so it's very common. That looks built the way it's built in the picture.
I
It
thought
looks
maybe that
very
was electrical.
to the code and to the button.
Thank you. Also, in your package, there's an A1 plan. That's the architectural set we submitted or provided that we will be subsequently submitting to the building department. It outlines the way it was constructed. It meets the code. There are no...
As drainage, I see the water, the downspout,
Drain.
the drainage.
The gutter and leaders,
Yes,
yes.
everything looks in place, nice.
I mean, you know, Abe, you mentioned that it's common, I mean, it shouldn't be common. It shouldn't be common that
Yeah,
people do things and build things, and then after the fact, want to come back and get a building permit. That shouldn't be common. I mean, I can understand if it happened and there was a situation where the house was getting sold or they were refinancing, as he mentions, and then all of a sudden it's kind of comes up as a condition that somebody needed to get a permit. But it's not a common, people shouldn't be encouraged to just do whatever they want and then come back to the board after the fact and look for variances.
You're right, no, you're right about it, I want to correct that, not common. I meant to say that somebody asked a question, I don't know which member, that how come it was built and how was it passed through the building department? It happened before, not, I'm sorry for saying common, you're right. It's not something that should be common.
Right.
And, I mean, you're right. I mean, in this case, I mean, there was, without question, there wasn't knowledge of the process. So he's not trying to sell the house and this became a condition
Right.
or a violation, well, per a title search. I mean, but he wants to live there, he's living there, they intend to stay there. He wants to correct the situation.
Okay.
And again, the scope of work is very small.
Sure.
And just to be clear, if this variance isn't granted, then the alternative would be to...
Take your finger off
The alternative would be to remove the roof from the porch?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I want to do that.
So to be clear, was it the addition of the roof that made the variances required? Or is it the patio itself that had gone unnoticed for many years? The patio with or without the roof would have required the variance?
The roof construction is what's triggering this session.
Right.
That patio existed for decades, and probably at the time it was built, it complied with whatever codes were in existence. It does, that patio right now, raised patio, doesn't comply with the current zoning code.
A lot of the times is when the building department is requiring a variance for a roof like this, like the awning roof, is because they don't want it should be enclosed later on, and that becomes a room or a part of the house. So they want to have it in record that it was only variance for a roof, no walls, no. So it's a roof on a patio only. That's most of the time why they're sending back to the ZBA, and they want to make sure that it was you're making a variance if the board agrees, just for a roof, not for a room.
That's a good point of clarification. That should probably be, you know, if we consider it part of the conditions.
Right.
Yeah, if
We
the
have
board's
no problem
inclined,
with- No problem with that. There's no intent to enclose this.
yeah, the board is inclined to grant the variance, it should certainly be a condition
Sure.
of any such grant.
Any
And we
other,
ask that the board do that.
any other comments on this issue?
No, I think we went over this pretty thoroughly the last time it was here.
Any question, any comment? No. Okay, so we'll make a motion.
Sure, if there's anybody from the public.
Yeah, anybody from the public that would like to say something about this issue?
Is that the owner? Okay.
The owner or
Once, twice, three. Okay, so we'll make a motion to close this public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do we need any five factors on this?
No, I mean, you can go over them quickly, it's always prudent to go over them quickly, at the very least. You could do them, here. Yeah. No, that's okay.
Whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or determined to nearby properties to be created by granting of the area variance.
No.
No.
No. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
No.
No.
No,
Whether the requested area variance is substantial,
no,
whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact the physical environmental conditions of the neighborhood or the district,
No.
no,
whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant, the decision of the Board of Appeals, which shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Okay, it was created.
right, it was self-created.
Okay, I'll make a motion to grant the variance.
Again, if you'd like, you can adopt this language as part of your motion, conditioned upon
Not to enclose it.
the fact that it shall not be enclosed, it shall remain an open-air deck and not become enclosed habitable space.
If ever they would want to do that, they should have to come back on that.
Most certainly.
Okay, we'll make a motion to grant the variance with the condition it should not be enclosed, it should stay open. Second,
Second.
Second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Variance has been granted.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice night.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, Dave.
Good night,
You
David.
too.
Okay. Do we have the minutes?
No, they were the ones from the last month that we couldn't approve because we didn't have enough people. And I didn't reprint them today, I forgot. So we'll have them all next month.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.